right, and without further ado, I will hand over to my co-host, Luana, to introduce a little bit about Felix. Morning, Luana and Felix.
Morning, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And hi, Felix. Um,
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. So, a little bit of an anecdote of how I met Felix. I took a class with him, an indigo dyeing class, and I got really fascinated about what he does and kind of how he conducted it and the inspiration behind it, especially when it comes to sustainability. So right away, I told him, I'm going to find a way to introduce you to Creative Mornings and have you welcome you in one of our mornings to share your journey with us. A little bit about Felix outside of my meeting and experience with him. He is a founder of Good Riddance, a platform that celebrates efforts towards sustainable way of living in the hope of us to champion circular economies by uncovering creating ways to reduce our waste. So quite a big topic, but I think it's a topic that we hear quite often now. So it's nice to see someone that actually started to put it in practice and kind of leads his life by this actually. He believes in a holistic approach to sustainability, and he believes that it begins when we learn to appreciate and become conscious of the process every step of the way. So I think that's what we're going to be unpacking today. His background is in fashion school, but then he spent 3 years traveling around the world as a cabin crew before moving to Tokushima, Japan, where he lived for 2 years studying indigo farming and fabric dyeing. So I'm going to start our chat with a quote that we really like at Creative Mornings from John Meda, which will kind of set the tone for our theme today. And it's the following: the divergent thinker takes an idea and expands it. They look for new ways to connect it with the other diverse things. What does being divergent mean to you, Felix? And let's just start talking about it there.
Right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Felix. Thank you, Creative Mornings, for having me today. And also thank you, everyone, for showing up on a Friday morning. Divergent thinker, what does it mean to me? I think it's someone who possesses a quality of being open-minded and also who can appreciate every step of the process. So they can, when they fully understand the process, they know that we are more interconnected than what we know or what we expect to be. And then we can catch the opportunity to expand in any or every possible direction. So that's what Divergent thinker is to me.
Yeah, and can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you founded Good Riddance?
Yeah, okay, so thank you for doing a brief description about me. So yeah, I being a fashion student actually, where I explore different possibilities in storytelling and also the form of textile and also the human body, after which I became a cabin crew for 3 years, and then I moved to Tokushima in Japan, where I do indigo farming and indigo dyeing. That's where all the magic began. So I was led into the full production process before arriving at the ingredient indigo, which is the color blue. And for those who have not known already, it comes from a plant in the past. So it takes 1 year to produce this particular color. I'm going to bring you through the process that I witnessed when I was in Japan. So we start with cultivating of the soil, and then we germinate the seeds when the temperature and the humidity is right. We take care of them, we transplant them into the field, and then we allow them to grow more. When they are mature, we will harvest them. And then after we harvest them, we'll separate them to dry. And this is the indigo leaf. So when they dry up, they turn blue, so you can see. There's a very special process that is involved in indigo, which is also the fermenting process or the composting process, where we try to preserve the indigo leaves. And then subsequently, we go into the 2 more weeks of extraction of the colors by another round of fermentation before we arrive at the indigo dye bed. So it's a very long and tedious process. It's 1 year and 2 weeks to arrive to the bed that Luana saw in my studio at the time when she visited me. And also through the lens of indigo, it's not about only about the full 1 year process that I witnessed. It's also about other things that I never thought I would see, topics I never thought I'd touch, things like fermentation, things like water quality, soil condition, and even something more philosophical, something like value in aging. So these are the topics that I was shown to, and the most importantly, during the process of learning this, it's the people that I met. Just a moment. Okay, so it's the people who I met during the process where there are people like farm to table restaurant owners, and there are ethical animal farmers, and also a zero waste town nearby is Kamikaze. Things that things I witnessed were like examples like fabric that were made out of wood, and also the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals that was introduced to. And with all this collaboration that was going on between all of us and the people I met, I understand more about it. I was exposed to the value in full production process and transparency in the production process. And there were the people who supported me a lot during my time when I was going through the transition phase from Singapore to Japan. And then I realized that it takes a community to raise a child, for example. So for our instance, it's also, it takes a community to tackle a problem together, and also to raise a future that we want to live in. So then that also brought me to another sentence I thought I learned from it, is that sustainability then is more than just a word. Sustainability became a feeling for me. It's not about just the fight against climate change, but also the food, the things that we put into our body, an emotion, empathy, and also to leave no one behind in the community. And that's what got me started on Good Riddance. So when I decided to bring it back to Singapore, primarily is to share the feelings I've experienced when I was back in Japan. And I thought it was a very beautiful experience. So I'm doing it by conducting workshops and also providing a dye service for other people. And hopefully become a platform to uncover local stories. So by replacing the stories I've found in Japan with Singapore examples.
Yeah, so here I think we even in our in your class you shared quite some amazing examples of what you started doing here in Singapore and how you started approaching sustainability. I mean, yeah, starting with Good Riddance and what you do there, but also kind of starting partnering up with different entities. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I believe that everything is very much interconnected in different process, and by understanding that, we'll know that one idea can expand in many different ways, especially when you have a platform to talk, to share with everyone, and then you realize that, oh, you know, there are more ways than I thought there were. And then that's how, when I started Good Riddance, my priority was to localize my ingredients. So whatever I learned from Japan, I want to take it as a model back to Singapore. And I want to localize everything by planting my own indigo plants, as you can see in the screen. So they are still very small at the moment. It's in a community plot downstairs my house. So I share it with very professional neighbors around. You can tell that the vegetables are very much bigger than mine. So with that, I also spoke to them about like soil condition, and I'm exploring different platforms to do this. So another thing that I talked about, okay, so wood ash. So something interesting, wood ash is one of the main ingredient for indigo dye, and that wood ash usually is a byproduct. So in Japan, people keep themselves warm by burning wood for stoves. But in Singapore, with this weather, we don't get this kind of wood ash. So I'm also actively looking for people who use local trees. So I explored talking with Roger and Sons, who very interestingly has a project called the Local Tree Project. So they explore using local trees to make furnitures out of them. And then what I want to do is also to be able to use their wood offcuts. So in Luana, who attended my workshop, certain equipment were used from the local wood. And at the same time, I want to find different opportunities to use these offcuts to find a way to incinerate them. Somebody who can get like an earth oven or something out of it, and then I can use the wood ash. It's more of exploring how much you can use resources before you return it back to the ground again. So that's one. So I'm very focused, as in I am trying to close my own loops of production. So these are the wood, and then I also started talking to different organizations for collaborations and also explore each other's waste streams. At the same time, so there is also pockets of community around who are really doing this for many years in terms of major placemaking, organizations like Ground Up Initiative. So there are people who have existed for many years, but they put in a lot of work to close the loops of production, to share nature with us. And I think that is the perfect place for me to integrate myself into what is already existing, that I don't really need to create more communities. We can share each other's good points, advantages.
So what would you say that are, some of your maybe challenges that you encounter in the sustainability process? Because I think it's, when you look around, it's really just hard to start with small things. So I'm just wondering, what you've noticed having been so immersed into sustainability and in your everyday work.
So if you can tell over here, what I do is also in the dyeing services, that I repurpose stained goods, yellowed clothes, and then to help them help to educate about users' responsibilities. So to me, when I started Good Riddance, I know that there are many responsible makers around who value longevity in a product, but I would like to help ensure that by educating on the user's responsibility. So for us as a user, when we purchase an item, do we think that we assume the responsibility to use the product up to its life expectancy? And when they, unfortunately, halfway through, you can't use them anymore, do we find ways to repair them, find ways to actively use them again? Which is what I want to highlight with Good Riddance. And it's a very niche thing. So I realized that then that's the challenge. That education is a very long journey. But I believe that the response will be good. I still see response that people are starting to question or start to think about a product that before they throw them out, what can I do with it? So they started asking me if I can dye this and that. And I think even if they don't go through it, it's a good start that people are starting to question that. Other than that, ever since coming back, working with nature, I realized that we can't ban nature. We work with them. We work alongside them. We don't make them work for us. And certain things just don't happen if the right conditions is not met. And then I feel that there's a difficulty. I struggle with trying to commercialize it sometimes. Sometimes it gives me the anxiety whether will nature work with me to produce a certain results at a certain time. And that is something I'm trying to balance. And I appreciate this very important lesson that I learned from nature itself.
So that takes me to my next question with what's next for you. I mean, I was really lucky to take your class, I'd say. I did learn a lot about the process, and it did make me think about other areas in my life where I should, be considerate towards sustainability, which I think, I got that education aspect. So do you have any classes coming up or anything exciting in the works that you want to share with our community?
Yeah, I think what's next is to focus on my priorities of localizing everything. So even in the workshops that I provide, what's next for me is to uncover all the local stories. So I want to start replacing the slides that I used in my first workshop with physical things, like the actual plant itself, to let you see the actual plant, to let you feel them, sense them, and then to understand like the ingredients that I use, the things that you use in the workshop actually has a story behind it, and that they're all within reach, within what we have in Singapore. And also to share the different stories and hopefully become a platform for people to bridge and then close their own loops of production one day.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for taking us through your journey, especially, in the morning. I think that's, for me, it's quite inspirational to start my day with this, and usually with Creative Mornings. So thank you for joining us, at quite a short notice. I really appreciate that you made time to share your experience with everyone. And I'd like to invite people to pose their questions. If there's something in the chat, I see Bryce, you put up a question. So would you like to just ask Felix? You can just unmute yourself and ask the question.
All right. Hi, good morning, Felix.
Hi, good morning.
I want to ask you, because I did a workshop in Okayama on indigo dyeing as well.
Yeah.
So why do you choose to do it or learn it in Tokushima instead of Okayama?
It was by coincidence that I met the group of artisans in Singapore where I did a workshop. They're from Tokushima. And I only realized it after when I went to Tokushima that in Japan, there are many famous indigo dyers, and that's why it's very famous for Japan Blue, this term. But in Tokushima is the place where indigo plant was cultivated. So since the samurai times, the making of the ingredient indigo is only by Tokushima, and they ship them out from Tokushima to the rest of Japan since samurai times.
Thank you for sharing that. Thanks.
Actually, you mentioned, I remember in your class that how there's just a few masters left, and how, it's like an art that's slowly disappearing. Can you share a bit about that? Because I think that was really interesting to me.
So when chemical dye has been introduced and that they are very cheap and efficient, everyone basically moved to chemical dye. So all the denim jeans that we wear these days are all chemically dyed. Most of the farmers in the past, people who lived along the river in Tokushima were all indigo farmers. And then when the demand decreased, everyone changed to a different cultivation. And now there are only 6 farmers left, 6 masters who are still practicing making the indigo for the rest of Japan since the samurai period. But recently there is a rise in younger people who wants to do it, but there's also a rise in merging the craft. So instead of just being an indigo farmer, we integrate indigo dyeing together with the craft. So we farm our own plants, we make our own indigo, we dye in them, and we personally hand it to the clients.
Thank you. I think that's really helpful to understand the process. We have another question from Tini. Tini, if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, would be awesome.
Hi everyone, and Felix, thank you so much for sharing. It's really impressive what you're doing. I was wondering how you're finding the reception for your message in Singapore. Like, are people quite open to thinking more sustainably and also acting more sustainably?
I feel that people who, or at least from the workshop, I feel that people are walking out with a different thinking. It has changed definitely in their own ways. They have changed in their own ways. They told me some of them. But what is the most important thing for me is the feeling, which cannot be described. Like I mentioned, that sustainability is more than just a word, it's a feeling, which during the workshop, I try to avoid this word completely. But by the things that are offered in the workshop, I want people to feel it and truly understand why did I make the decision to do this. And I hope that with that kind of feeling that is imparted to them, what will they do with it subsequently? I don't think I can give you a very definite number. But with the people coming back to us to dye their stuff, the questions coming to me, and how I see people respond to what I'm doing by talking to them and sharing with them, I think that they are receptive to it and they are excited. Most importantly, I think they will want to choose to do something like it can be anything else. It can be any other colors. I don't mind if you don't do blue, but it's the decision that I hope that they will make from a feeling.
Thank you. And our last question is from Nick, actually one of our volunteers. So Nick, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi Felix. I I was just wondering, like, I mean, since the theme was Divergent and you are, I mean, our representation of Divergence this morning, how do you bring a lot people along to your like Divergent thought, like train of thought, as I've put it in the question? Yeah, because I think that would be pretty hard, right?
Yeah, I don't think I will always try to bring them to my train of thoughts, but I think that when we talk, we see how we suddenly become more connected in our own ways from what, for example, if I meet somebody else and then we share about what I do, and then say Luana share about what she does, and then like we see a common ground, and I think that's the most important part of being a divergent, I guess, to understand that common ground exists in every way, as in many forms, I guess. And then I don't try to make them understand what I feel, but they understand how I feel from the common ground that we share. Does that answer?
Righto, thank you.
And we had another question come in.
Hi.
Yes, I just wanted to know, is there a difference essentially between the practice of indigo in Thailand versus Japan? And are you connected to the Thai practice too?
Yes, there are different ways of extraction and preparing to arriving at the ingredient indigo itself in the different countries. So say for, I think Thailand, what they use is the indigo paste. So it's a different way of extracting the colors, but the sciences behind it is always the same. So I feel that it's just a model that we can adopt, and then it can appear in the different pockets of the community. It doesn't have to be the Japanese way of doing things. It's the way we live, I guess, the way nature works for us.
Yeah, it's also maybe the climate is different. They're different. I mean, Japan versus Southeast Asia, the tropics versus, yeah.
The indigo plant thrives in hot and humid weather. So the seeds that I brought back from Japan works here. I haven't reached the stage of flowering and seeding that, which I think that there may be a problem. Maybe it may be how we want to control them, the condition. We condition it. So by covering, by shading, having a shade over so that they know that they need to flower. Yeah, just stimulating it. Maybe that will be one of the problems that I may face.
Right, thanks.
Thank you so much, Caitlin, for your question, and for everyone else who contributed. I'd like to just invite you for our last hurrah, I'd say, for everyone to say, bye to Felix today, and a big thank you. So if you want to put back your cameras in, we can just do that organically. I think it's a nice send off after such an inspirational talk. So thank you again, Felix. And I see people putting some of the cameras back on, which is so lovely to see everyone's faces. Thank you. Yeah. And for those that want to follow Felix's journey, you can follow him on Instagram at goodriddance_SG. Yeah, I'll put it here just so everyone can follow.
Follow CreativeMornings.sg also.
Yes.
Yes.
So you also find Felix there. So in case you missed his handle, you'll find him on Creative Mornings.
Go to Creative Morning and you can come to me.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Felix, again, and thank you everyone for joining this morning.
Thank you everyone for your time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.